No, I think Fair Oaks is the sanitarium for her. They're used to this kind of case over there.
You've made the arrangements?
Yes, they're sending over a car and a matron right away.
Do you want me to go out to Fair Oaks with her?
No, I don't think that will be necessary.
Fair Oaks, Doctor.
Now, that's a rest home, Mrs. Ellis. Now, Mrs. Ellis, I want you to think very quietly, very calmly for a moment. You understand?
Yes, Doctor.
I want you to think about Grace Jackson.
Have you found her?
Just quietly, will you describe her for us?
Well, she was average size, about my age. Her hair was sort of brownish. I think her eyes are green. She was wearing a light gray uniform. Of course, she might have changed after I left, but as a rule, around the house, she wore light gray. Why? Has anything happened to her?
You see, Mrs. Ellis, you've given us a possible description of yourself.
I don't bear the slightest resemblance to Grace Jackson. And if and when you find her, she will agree with me. Are you deliberately trying to torture me? Can't you see I am most desperately anxious about everything? About
right,
Grace,
Mrs.
about
Ellis.
my little
All
daughter,
right.
Susan.
Everything is going to be all right, Mrs. Ellis. Thank you.
Mrs. Ellis, I have the address of a young lady named Susan Ellis. I've spoken to her on the phone.
Is she all right?
Yes, she's perfectly well.
Then I can see her. I can be taken directly to her.
Just as soon as the car arrives. We've arranged for you to stop off and see her.
Oh, I am grateful. If Susan is all right, I am eternally grateful. I really don't want to make trouble. I've always been a very quiet, peaceable sort of person, not easily excited, not given to quick tempers.
It's quite all right, Mrs. Ellis.
Well, the matron is here as Mrs. Ellis is ready to leave. Mrs. Henderson, this is Mrs. Ellis.
Mrs. Ellis.
Our matron knows all about you, Mrs. Ellis, where to take you and what to do. You have the address, don't you?
Yes, Doctor. I don't suppose Susan will mind, but I wish I had a hat. I do so hate looking common and ungroomed. Why, they converted my bedroom into a photographer's studio in a matter of minutes. Minutes!
Try to calm yourself, Mrs. Ellis.
And Susan's room. I dare not think what they have done to it. That awful lady and her cat.
I must insist that you not excite yourself. Try to think of something pleasant. Something in your memory that's pleasing to recall.
Why, this very morning started out quite pleasantly. Susan breakfasted with me in my room.
Morning, Mommy.
Good morning, darling.
Muffins?
Blueberry muffins, and they're piping hot.
Your bed's still turned down.
Uh-huh.
Any special reason?
Well, rather special. Every Monday morning, if I'm not very careful, a little girl bursts into my room, jumps into my bed, and demands that her breakfast be served immediately.
Like this?
Exactly like that.
What's the little girl's name?
Her name? Miss Susan Ellis.
Is she a nice little girl?
Oh, a very nice little girl.
Do you like her?
Well, I will have to think about that.
Mommy, that isn't what you're supposed to say.
It isn't?
You're teasing me. You know very well you're supposed to say, I like her and I love her very much.
I like her, and I love her very much. But she's very late this morning.
I won't be late, Mommy. I had a nice long bath last night.
You're going to have a nice short one this morning.
Can you curtsy?
Swallow before you speak, dear.
Sorry. What I asked was, can you curtsy?
Well, maybe I could manage one. curtsy?
No, I can't.
Susan curtsies beautifully.
Well, most little girls do.
Oh, not most at all. Linda, for example, has never learned to master it. Of course, I know her to be a very shy youngster, and no doubt that has a good deal to do with it.
Linda.
Susan's little friend. She had to practice all weekend in front of the mirror.
Oh, we ought to be there before much longer. This won't take long.
Susan is here? Well, I can't think why Miss Slater would bring her here.
Well, this is where we were told to stop.